We're really privileged this morning to have Matt from World Vision with us. I just want to give a little bit of just say a little thing before Matt comes up. One of our discipleship pillars that we talked about at the beginning of the year is committed to mission. We as a church believe in the mission of Jesus, don't we? We believe in taking the gospel out into all the world. Pioneers, strapliners, taking the gospel into new spaces and places. And we believe in that, and we are committed to that. And that looks different for each of us. That might look like going across the road to your neighbour, or it might look like in your workplace, or for some of us, we do mission down here through the branch and different ways. And so we are committed to mission. And there's mission here, but there's also mission abroad. And we recognise that we can't do that all as Huddersfield Church. We can't do that all over the world. But we want to partner with people and with organisations that do that. And about 18 months ago, me and Ruth thought we'd do something a little bit under the radar and decided to start sponsoring a child through World Vision. And you will have seen the video that we showed a couple of weeks ago to know that it's not gone under the radar that much. Because what happened was we were at Wildfires Festival and we decided, we just had a conversation, so we really feel like we need to do this. It was a prompting from the Holy Spirit to sponsor a child. And so we went to the stand, and Matt's colleague John was there, and the internet was dodgy, so we ended up chatting for a very long time while we tried to sign up. Eventually got signed up, and kind of thought we'd done the process, everything went through. We got our child sponsored and all that sort of thing. The direct debit was going out of our account. We were getting all the updates, all that sort of thing. And then John contacted me via email a few months later and said, "We filmed the girl that chose you. We'd really like to film you guys. Would you be up for it?" And so John came to our house and we did that film that you guys saw a couple of weeks ago. And as we did that, we chatted more and more with John about the work of World Vision. And then we finished all that, and all the videos got produced and that sort of thing. But then since then, me and Matt have been in communication, talking. Matt's taken John did your job before, is that right? Ish. John was in the team. So me and Matt have been talking since then. And more and more, as I've talked to Matt and talked to John previously, just sensing, God is on the move. God is doing stuff. And this is an organisation we want to partner with and we want to invest in. And we recently actually sowed into a couple of the projects. As a church, we sowed into a couple of the projects that World Vision are doing. And I say all this because I want you to know that this is not just a charity that have rung me up and said, "Can we come and speak at your church?" We are looking for organisations and people that we can partner with. And some of those are locally and some of those are internationally. And we want to partner with organisations that want to see the good news of Jesus. Our vision is making the love of God real in the real world. And we want to partner with people that want to do that. And so I really want to commend World Vision and commend Matt to you as people that are doing that. And I really just ask you to receive Matt in that this morning. So let's give Matt a round of applause as he comes to speak to us.
Wow, thank you.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Matt. I've come from Southampton. Not today. I stayed in a hotel. I'm originally from Luton, which is why I live in Southampton. I was a church leader for almost 30 years, and I escaped. And now I work for World Vision. But I do this job because the more I studied, it was funny because I know Dan's brother, but I didn't know that he was his brother until I saw them at Wildfires this year and went, "Of course you're brothers, that's really obvious, isn't it?" And you got the same surname. What a coincidence. And I was meant to be his mentor at WTC when we were doing theology, but he didn't really want mentoring, or he didn't want it from me anyway, so we never actually had any conversations. But the more I studied, the more I saw justice as the heart of the gospel. And so for me, it doesn't feel like a change of career. It feels like I'm doing a job because I believe that this is crucial and central to the good news. And I do this because I get the opportunity to come to churches and to help us all work out how do we get to be part of this. Dan and Ruth are legends in World Vision. Unfortunately, I managed to prevent my colleague coming up because she would have wanted your autographs. Because of the video and everything. She gets a bit starstruck. It's quite funny. So, World Vision. Let me tell you a little bit about World Vision. World Vision is the biggest Christian charity in the world. And it is the biggest children's charity in the world. So I think you'll agree we've done a very good job of keeping it secret, especially in the UK church. For the first year that I did this job, I've been doing it 3 years now. The first year, we were at conferences and people were going, never heard of you, or are you Christian? So I think it takes something to being able to achieve that. Fortunately, that isn't what we hear anymore. And so I want to talk about it. So first of all, this prayer, we sang in the first song, there was a line that reminded me of this. This is the prayer on which World Vision is founded. Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God. That was our founder, Bob Pierce. That underlies everything that we do. We work in sort of three main spheres of work. So the first one is we work in emergencies. So right now we are in the Middle East. We're in Lebanon. We have been there for some time working with the displaced people that are there. We were involved in the Turkey-Syria earthquake. We were there. We've been involved in the hunger crisis, which is going on in East Africa, which is the worst hunger crisis in the history of the world, but has never made the news. We're involved there and have been for a couple of years. So we've been involved in wars and famines and floods and tsunamis and all of these things that are happening. That we have teams across the world. We're in 100 countries. We have teams that are trained specifically to go and deal and be there in emergencies to provide emergency food, emergency medicine, shelter, all of the things. The second area that we work in is in fragile states. So these may be inherently fragile countries such as the DRC, where there's constant war going on. It may be working particularly with women and girls' rights, working to combat child marriage. Child marriage is a byproduct of poverty because people can't afford to look after their children, so it's easier to marry your 12-year-old daughter off, then she's looked after and you've got one less mouth to feed. But it's not great to have someone's childhood taken away like that. So we're working in places like this, and we're also in places like Turkey, Syria. So the earthquake happened, as you all know, last year. 13 days after it happened, I was speaking in a church, and I couldn't find a single news article on it. It just wasn't sexy anymore. It wasn't newsworthy anymore. And so, it's going to take a generation to rebuild what was destroyed. So we will be there working to help them to rebuild in a fragile state. And then the third thing that we do, as you're going back to this, one of my colleagues has just come back from Afghanistan. So we're one of the few Christian charities still working in Afghanistan. And she came back and... The government, the UK government, have given us a large grant and stuff, and they said to us you are by far and away the best charity for us to work with here. The work you're doing is by far and away the most effective, and so they're partnering with us in helping there. So the third thing is the sustainable development. I'm going to talk about that today and invite you to be part of what's going on. So to do that, I'm going to tell you a story about a place called Pajule in northern Uganda. In northern Uganda, in 1986, there was civil war broke out. A man called Joseph Kony, he formed something which was ironically called the Lord's Resistance Army. I mean, they really did believe that they were doing God's work in slaughtering thousands of people and abducting 30,000 children and raping women and all of these things. They had prayer meetings every day. But for 20 years, this civil war went on and destroyed that part of northern Uganda. For 20 years, everyone lived in refugee camps because it just wasn't safe to be anywhere else. So World Vision, along with other aid agencies, ran refugee camps in that part of northern Uganda, and helping to deal with the emergency there. About 17 years ago, the war came to an end and people came out from the camps. And so then we move in, it's a fragile state there. But what happened was that people came out of the camps and they were too scared to build anything. They were too scared to grow anything. They were too scared to invest in anything because they just feared the war would start again. And it was as though the whole spirit of the place has been broken. Uganda is called the Pearl of Africa. It has 10% of the world's bird species live in Uganda. Yeah, it's astonishingly rich wildlife. But in that part of northern Uganda, even 20 years after the war, we didn't see any mammals at all. It's just, it's lush, it's beautiful, but it's still going to take a long time naturally to recover from the war, let alone the people. But there was this brokenness, this broken spirit on everyone. And the suicide rate, one of the World Vision staff there was telling us that he was attending 5 funerals a day that were suicides. We said to him, what's different today? He said, well, you see these people getting out of the way of the car. They wouldn't have got out of the way of the car before because they would have just said, I've got nothing to live for. I might as well just get run over. It was just a totally broken place. So World Vision was there helping in the rebuilding. We ran trauma camps for the ex-child soldiers. 30,000 children abducted. Many of them never seen again. Many of them forced to become child soldiers. So we ran trauma camps. The most recent one only shut 3 years ago. When we were there last year, there's a photograph here. So this is, you can't read it, but there's a memorial there about them remembering the war and the children that went missing in it. And in the middle of the photograph is the sub-county chairman, Amona Alphonse, and a lady called Margaret Adiero. And she told us her son, she hasn't seen her son for 20 years. She doesn't know what happened to him. And they told us about what it was like in the war. And they told us what it was like coming out from the camps and the brokenness there was everywhere and the utter hopelessness. In December 2019, we launched Chosen. And Chosen it was a new thing for us. It's sponsorship, but I'll explain more about it in a minute. But it's basically beginning sustainable work. And this party, there's a photograph, just a little still from the party. We're going to watch a video in a bit where you'll see this dance happening. But my friend was at this party. And this was the launch of Chosen. We've spent 2 years with the community leaders and the church leaders, planning with them a 15-year plan. The idea being at the end of 15 years, we will no longer be needed. That's the idea. That's how World Vision works. It's all about removing dependency. It's all about equipping people. It's all about training people so that we are not needed. So we put together, we spent 2 years, 15-year plan. We launched it in December 2019. And then there was a party. And at this party, this dance went on. And one of the World Vision staff came up to my colleague and he said, the lady leading this dance, her husband was murdered in front of her during the war. And she still has 2 bullets in her leg. They said, this is a hope dance. We haven't done this for 15 years. And we started our work there. So we've gone through the emergency. We've gone through this fragile context with broken people. And now we're launching a rebuilding work, which will mean we're not needed anymore. And it works, and it's about medicine. It's about getting proper, clean drinking water. It's about helping them, teaching them to grow drought-resistant crops. It's about health and safety. It's about safeguarding for the children. It's about women's rights. It's about education. And in Uganda, they pioneered the work. The way we work in World Vision is that each office, it's part of a federation, it's part of a partnership, but we don't have any authority over the Ugandan office. So they have their own theologians, they have their own planners, and they pioneer a lot of stuff. So one of the things they pioneered is that they put households in clusters of 20 or 30 households. And it's incredible to see. It's proper. When we talk about sharing their lives in common, koinonia, the word for fellowship, literally means sharing your lives in common. I've never seen anything like it is there. All of these families working together. They build an education centre together. They dig the well together. They grow their crops together. They save together. It's living their lives in common with one another. We have a minimum of 95% local staff worldwide in World Vision. In Uganda, it's way higher than that. So most of our staff are local people. It's not British people going over there telling them how to do it. But the clusters are something amazing that are pioneered there. And we work with local churches and we work through local churches. Our focus is on the community, and we always invite all the other faith leaders to become part of that. And 90% or 80% of what we do is delivered through the local churches. There's a photograph here of me a couple of years ago with some of the local church leaders. And I will say, when I first moved to Southampton, the unity in the churches was appalling. It was really bad. There were churches who did not speak to one another. Most definitely didn't speak to one another. And we spent decades working on unity in Southampton. And it was pretty good. We had... they used to get people in from around the world to tell us how to have revival. And one guy came from Argentina, and the secret to revival was unity. And he came and he said, actually got a better level of unity than we have. So that apparently wasn't the secret. But what I'm trying to say is we had a high level of unity in Southampton. When I talk about unity, I'm not just throwing the word out, but I have never seen anything like they have in Patchouli. I've never seen anything like it. Anglicans, Catholics, Baptists, Pentecostals, just working together as one church in the community. And they when I asked them, how come? They said, well, it's because of World Vision. Because of World Vision, we are now one church. And they have some kind of ecumenical thing that they can register for in Uganda. But they've decided that they don't think that's a high enough level of unity. So they are going way beyond that. They're saving money together. They preach in each other's churches. They support one another. They work together in everything they do. And they're saving to buy a tractor for the community. And you know what? Right in the middle of it, there's an imam. And this imam goes to the prayer meetings. He was saying, praise the Lord, when I met him. He prays with them. The church leaders come and speak in his church. It's astonishing. And I spoke to the faith and development guy in Uganda. He goes, I don't know how this works. We don't want him shaping what we do, but we love it that he's involved in the middle of it. And one of the things that we do, that again was developed by the people out in East Africa, they found that people did not want to be helped. They didn't believe they were worthy to be helped. So they developed something called empowered worldview, which looks at your value as a human. It looks at your dreams. It looks at your dreams and ambitions. It looks at your relationships and community. And it's all biblical teaching. So right at the foundation of all of the stuff that we do is this stuff is being taught. And the imam's teaching all of this Christian teaching to his mosque. It's amazing. I've never seen unity like it. It really is like, this is one church. And most of what we do is talk through it. So they might be teaching about hand washing or safeguarding. They might be teaching about marriage. But it's done through and in partnership with the local churches. We visited a cluster. There's just a little photograph here of a cluster. And we spent a morning with this community. And it was amazing hearing about what they were doing. Their pump had broken. So we took a load of church leaders out there. One of the church leaders said, well, are you going to buy them a new pump? And the World Vision staff says, no, that's not what we do. we will help them to save for a pump, or we will give them the microfinance so that they can buy the parts for it, and we will show them how to fix it. Because there's no point in us just buying them something and then when we leave, it breaks down and then it never gets fixed again. It's all about equipping them. And we came away from this community. And one of the church leaders who came with us, she was a pioneer church leader actually, from just outside Southampton, Sue Singh. And she came up to me and she said, I don't know how to communicate this. I was expecting to see sadness and deprivation, but all I see is joy and hope. All I see is joy and hope. And this community was 2 years old, and they were saying, well, there's one down the road, and it's been going for 5 years, and World Vision's only involvement there now is to monitor. And this community is already training up other communities. Dan says you're doing a series on the Sermon on the Mount at the moment. I love the Sermon on the Mount. For the first 300 years, it was the main teaching of the church. It was the manual for life. Dallas Willard talks about it in terms of the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus saying, this is what life in the kingdom is. And the Beatitudes are really particularly powerful. And the first 3 Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. That means that's the powerless. Blessed are those who've got no power, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek. That means the unimportant ones, for they will inherit the earth. Now, the word blessed, makarios, it literally means to live the good life. You know, it gets to January every year and it's really cold and it's really depressing, and then Death in Paradise comes on. And, you know, it's not really very good anymore, but it's in the Caribbean and the sun's shining and it's lovely. And you think, that's the good life. This is the good life. Blessed means this is the good life. But Jesus has just listed the powerless, those who mourn, and the unimportant, and saying they're living the good life. Well, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense until you understand that this is life in the kingdom. And it's an absurd statement. But when I was in Pajule last year, I got it. It was like, this is what that looks like. And you know, I always used to, my job is church engagement. I meet with church leaders all of the time. And I always used to talk about our responsibility to look after those that are in need. And absolutely, that is totally true. But I came away from Pajule and I was like, this is what the kingdom of heaven looks like. This is what it looks like when the kingdom comes. And so now when I talk to church leaders, I say, do you want to be part of this? Do you want to be part of what God is doing in this place in northern Uganda? Because it is incredible. And I've never seen anything like it anywhere else. The unity, the joy, and the hope. And you know, I mentioned the trauma camps for the child soldiers. We said to our host, can we meet some of the ex-child soldiers? And they said, well, we don't know who they are. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I said, are they in the communities? He said, oh yeah, they're in all the communities. And I said, but well, can we meet some? Because, but I don't know which ones they are. Such is the healing and the reconciliation and the forgiveness that they are in all of these communities, and the World Vision staff working with them every day don't even know which ones they are. This is what it looks like when the kingdom of heaven comes. So I said, I would like to invite you to be part of this. So how, I hear you say. So we support, we finance this stuff through child sponsorship. Now, child sponsorship has been getting a bad rap over the last decade, and in some respects, rightly so. But the way that World Vision do child sponsorship is that when you sponsor a child, that child is an ambassador for the whole community. 1 in 5 of the children are sponsored, but all of them receive the same support. And the support is all about, like I said to you, about every single aspect of life: medicine, education, safeguarding, drought-resistant crops, nutrition, all of these things. So your child is an ambassador for that whole community. You're not paying for one child to be separated away from everyone else and have their education. It's all about empowering. And the way we did it, and which was launched in Padule, was Chosen. And with Chosen, the child gets to choose you. So you have your photograph taken. There will be a party next week, I think the party is, or in a couple of weeks. 22nd of October. There's a party, and the children will choose who they want to be their friend. It's had an astonishing impact in Uganda. When I went there the first time, the Ugandan staff said, "You've got to come over and see this, because you can still go on our website and sponsor a child, pick a child and sponsor them like this." So Padule was the first time we've ever done this with Chosen. And they said, "We'd rather you only did it like this." Because and we said, "Well, why?" And they said, "Well, if you'd said to someone before, what sponsorship?" The parent would say, "Well, someone comes, takes a photograph of our child, and then sometime later they say, your child's been sponsored." But they don't know what it means. With this, there's a party, and it's a whole day family fun day with food, hosted by one of the local churches. So there's teaching. There might be training on something like hand washing or health and safety or something like that. There's medical staff there from the health authority who are updating children's health records and making sure they're up to date with their vaccinations. There are games for the kids. There's all this stuff going on as part of it. There's a photograph here. It's probably the next one, actually, Yeah, so the children who are doing the choosing will come, and they will come and look at these pictures, and they'll choose who it is they want to be their sponsor. But the way that it's empowered the children has been beyond anything that anyone's thought before. The whole communities and the parents are empowering the children like never before. They said to us, "Well, children never get to choose anything. This might be the first choice they ever make." And we're like, "Really? But it's just one thing." And they said, "No, it's not. It is absolutely every area of their life." And so one parent said to us, "When I saw my child choose that photograph, I knew there was hope for Uganda." And another one said to me, "When my daughter chose that photograph, I knew the whites didn't own us anymore." So when you sponsor through World Vision, you're supporting this 15-year plan. And we do this. It's about the whole community. We do this. There's a reason why we do it through sponsorships. There's another photograph here. So I think this first one is Faith. She's the one who chose the Lush family. And we were at the party, and we just said, "Hey, let's just follow one child, and then we can get in contact with the family that she chooses." And here we are. The one in the middle is Sunday, and then the one on the right is Brenda. And as you can see, life is hard for them. Two of them have been forced to wear Liverpool tops. That's how bad it is. The kingdom of heaven is coming, but it's not here fully. And this is Glory, this next one. And she chose my family. And she chose us because of the baby. And my 5-year-old was really not very happy about being called a baby. But I had the privilege of meeting her last year. And I met her parents. Francis is her dad and Eileen is her mum. Francis is one of the volunteers who works at the choosing parties. But I read a quote. It's up in our CEO's office now. And it says, "Child sponsorship holds us accountable to our promise to improve the lives of the world's most vulnerable children, whose names we know and whose stories we tell." It's a real person. It's not a concept. And so I think we're going to watch a video, and then Dan's going to... Right.
Today we have an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of 150, 200 children in Pajuli in northern Uganda. The place that we're being asked to join in with what God is doing there is a place of incredible destruction and damage and pain, where we can play a part in that community's recovery. For years, child sponsorship has been done in a certain way, where there have been a whole range of photographs of children that we've stood there and picked a child. Well, what World Vision have done is they flipped it. Rather than us choosing a child, we're giving the child the chance to choose us. It might be the first choice that they will ever have had the power to make. And then next Sunday, there will be a group of envelopes. And one of those envelopes will have your name on it. And when you open that envelope, there will be a photograph of the child in Pajuli who has chosen you.
Amazing. So in a moment, we're going to sing together, and then when we've at the end of our time together, there'll be a QR code on the screen. In fact, Michael, can you put the QR code up now? You can go to this and you can choose to be sign up to be chosen. Matt's going to be over here if you want to come and ask him any questions. If you want to, he'll come and he'll take your photos here. You can come and see Matt. So Matt will be here, and I think minimum sponsorship is £26 a month. Is that right? The minimum sponsorship is £26 a month. If you want to sponsor more than that, you're very welcome to. But please feel free to come over. Matt's not in any rush. We've got a lunch reservation, but it's not for a while. But please come in and speak to him, and consider whether you could sponsor a child. It is amazing the difference that God is doing in that community. And it's part of God making all things new, isn't it? He's redeeming our world.